And what's happening, everyone? It's Kyle from Magpie 24/7, and we hope you're all good. We thought we'd take a week after the season, a couple of weeks actually, but we thought we'd take a little bit of time. Obviously, Paul's done his Man in the Van. I've done a video with Jack from Gallagher Shots, a couple of things here and there, but we're back to the crisper things. We're back to the meat of the bone, Paul. The podcast where it's all at. It's been a couple of weeks, mate. And it's one that we've been building to. We want to combine it a little bit. We don't want to do like the same video twice and the same podcast twice, where we're talking about player ratings for the season and then a keep ourselves video afterwards, because I think it's just counterproductive. You're saying the same things, same shite. So I just thought we'd do it all in one, but it's going to be cut into two. So we'll do this in one take, but with my top dollar editing skills. No, number one for editing on the entire platform. I mean, a couple will disagree with us, but hey ho. I'll cut it in the middle. And
well, you'll have to, because when we get to Christian Atso, I'm going to get a little bit upset. I'm going to get a little bit emotional. You know how these things go.
Aye, spotty dog. But yeah,
just for the record, after the last podcast, I do not come from Teesside. Just for the record, County Durham. Yes, Teesside, my ass. I come from, County Durham. Now, residing a little bit further away, but just to set the record straight, Spenny lad. So,
I thought you may have something to say about that one.
Oh yes,
you got a comment out, but comments are good, barring the ones where we're calling Paul a smoggy. But we'll crack into it. We'll start with the goalkeepers, Paul. I think it'd be fair to start with Carl Darlow, because obviously Dubravka picked up a major injury in the summer last season. And Darlow,
weren't we?
Yeah, we're shitting ourselves. Even one of the first podcasts was saying, Christ, Carl Darlow's going to be in goal. What kind of season is he going to have? And to be fair to Carl Darlow, he was absolutely phenomenal. A couple of games in that first part of the season where all we did was defend, we stayed 20 yards backwards, 5 at the back, 3 holding midfielders, hope for the best. Carl Darlow, to get us results, had to make 4 or 5 saves a game. And he was.
We're not talking like a Manchester City job where you might have 1 or 2 saves per game. This was, the ball is being peppered at our goal, left, right, and bloody centre. And in the best ways of Batman, Superman, he was literally flying all over the place. Would I say that he's the best keeper ever? No, I wouldn't. But he's certainly a fantastic shot stopper, mate. And he came in. We were shitting it. We were like, why can't we get a lone keeper? Why can't we do something? Why can't we try maybe somebody else, like Gillespie or anybody who we've got around, basically, barring Darlow, because I think we were both a little bit put off with towards the end of the championship run that he had with Rafa, and his distribution was going, and his confidence, literally, I think his confidence ebbed away a little bit, and we didn't see the best of him. But he come in and... I mean, I think the goalkeeping coach spoke a lot and very, very highly out of the fact that even though Dubravka was out, he was mentoring him and giving him encouragement. And there's very much a strong bond between our goalkeepers. So there was no need to worry. Absolutely no need to worry whatsoever. A very, very capable understudy for Martin Dubravka in Carl Darlow.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I completely agree. In terms of rating, I'm going to give him an 8. Start strong. I think he's had a phenomenal season. Even if you rewind back a year and listen to the podcast that we did, I think we both said we'd sell Carl Darlow. So for him to come back in without any expectancy to do anything, he's had an amazing season. Probably dropped at the right time. I think we were kind of saying he's making a couple of mistakes here and there, but it's not going to overshadow what was an amazing season for Carl Darlow. And I think if Dubravka had a longer stint of injury and Darlow stayed in between the sticks for a little bit longer, I honestly think he'd have been the third choice goalkeeper for the England Euros team.
It's a possibility. It's a definite possibility.
Sam Johnston, mate, you know what I mean? And I think Darlow's a hell of a lot better than Sam Johnston. But,
I think Darlow can count himself really unlucky. I'd have probably gone a good strong 7 out of 10. I'd said an 8 out of 10, but that little bit of a curtail at the end of his run. But I just think towards the end of the run, he was between the sticks and he was looking back at that bench and he was seeing Martin Dubravka. Now, Dubravka is the club's number one, and Darlow knows that. And we've talked before about the command, the extra presence that Dubravka has over Darlow in the box and the command of his defence. Because we're a team who doesn't, we don't keep clean sheets at all. I think we kept 7 clean sheets the entire season, and that's with 2 keepers who have played out of the skin. But I just felt when Dubravka came back, Darlow had a little bit of a wobble, a little bit of uncertainty, and I think Bruce kept him in maybe 1 or 2 games too much. But as soon as Dubravka came in, it was harsh on Darlow. It really, really was. But it was the right call to make. I'd have said a 7 out of 10. You said an 8 out of 10. I wouldn't.
I put 7 on the screen, mate. So we'll say a 7.
I wouldn't have split theirs over that one. And I think Darlow's been a fantastic understudy. He's not a number one for Newcastle United. And there's huge decisions to be made, I think, over the keepers this summer because we've got Woodman back. We've got Darlow, we've got Gillespie, we've got Dubravka, and the numbers just don't add up. They really, really don't. No. Darlow's a fantastic start to do, looking at the squad and everything. And it's going to be difficult to decide now, as opposed to before, on keep and sell because there's so much up in the air at the club.
There is, yeah. I think the way we should put it, mate, is if assuming a takeover doesn't happen. If a takeover does happen and we're all pissed and we're all having a great time, we'll do another one of these. But until then...
that would be same as that.
But we'll assume it's not and we'll just see it. But to get into this keep or sell with Darlow, it's harsh. And I know I've said he's had a good season and he's proved a lot of people wrong. But I would sell him, Paul. I might get a lot of shit for that. I realise that.
I can feel the comments coming alive. I do agree with you.
The reason I say this is because I feel Carl Darlow needs to be a number one somewhere. I feel he deserves it. The season he's had. Dubravka for me is number one. He's my favourite goalkeeper, and I think Newcastle's best goalkeeper since Shea Given. And it's just a tight spot for Carl Darlow, especially with Freddie Woodman coming back, with Gillespie in the background as well, and a couple of others coming through like Hawker and stuff. No, I don't think his name's not Hawker, is it? It's Danny Langley. I got the one from last year, Hawker. But no, I just think Darlow needs a first team space where he can settle down and maybe even try and get that England spot because I feel, mate, he deserves it. So it's not a sell for a lack of performance. It's a case that I think we need to sell him and take into consideration as well how low the rumour transfer funds are going to be. I think you can get 6 to 10 million for Carl Darlow and that can go towards a signing for next season. It's a flipping joke that we'll have to do this, but for me, Darlow, sell.
Yeah, it's with a heavy heart, which it wasn't when we did this previously and hasn't been, but it would be with a heavy heart that you would say for the benefit of his career. I think he's about 30-year-old now, which for goalkeepers is still quite a young, decent prime age, but he isn't going to be first choice at Newcastle. It's just a simple. It doesn't matter whether the takeover goes through. It doesn't go through. Even if we were to be relegated, he wouldn't have been first choice keeper at Newcastle, and he does deserve more than he's getting at Newcastle. I think if he went to a top end Championship club, a low end Premier League club, maybe a promoted club, I think he could do an absolutely fantastic, fantastic job for say like a Watford or somebody like that coming up to the Premier League, looking for players who can step up and make the step up. He would be absolutely fantastic. So for the benefit of his career. Because you don't want to be. I mean, if you look at Steve Harper, who's a long time understudy, do you want that for yourself? You know what I mean? I know you're probably settled in the area. You've got your best mate Jamal Lascelles there and everything, but I just think for your career, and you're quite right. Under the Ashley structure at the moment, literally We've barely got enough money to pay the electric bill. We can't even afford a bit of J's fluid around the stadium, mate, to keep things looking a little bit more dapper than what they are at the moment. So, yeah, unfortunately, it would, for £6 to £10 million, I would sell Darlow reluctantly. And I think he would get a very, very good reaction when he came back to St James's Park, a la Tim Krul for Norwich, if you remember.
Yeah, I remember that because every time Krul has came to Newcastle back, he's done well. He's always had a nice reception. Even when he's a sub, he's always came to the Gallagher end to like pay his respects and stuff, which is always going up slightly off topic, but I do agree with what you're saying, mate. But we'll go on to the next one. Martin Dubravka obviously missed a lot of the season. When he first came in, he made that slight mistake against Wolves that probably cost us 3 points. Doesn't help the manager didn't tell J.Murphy where to play, mind.
That was absolute
yeah.
It was
pretty
flat, Bruce.
No, Dubravka had a bit of a rough start, and then he started to really come into his own a little bit more, making save after save. The save he made at Leicester, I remember particularly well. He's just a phenomenal goalkeeper, mate. But for me, over the course of the season, I cannot give him any more than Darlow, mate. I think Darlow had as good a season as what Martin Dubravka had. So I'll give Dubravka a 7.
Yeah, definitely. That would be what I thought as well.
I think if Dubravka had a longer stint, it would have been higher. Same for Darlow. But with them being part and parcel over the course of the season and stuff, I think 7's fair, and I think next season Dubravka will be a massive thing for us. But it's not really up for debate, is it? Really, whether we keep ourselves called Darlow, because for me, like I said before, best we've had since Given. He really likes the city. He said some really nice things in his the Toon video that they do, where they get fan questions and stuff. He said some nice things about the city and about the football club. So I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. And yeah, for me, keep Martin Dubravka. No brainer.
To me, mate, he could be a Champions League level elite keeper for a top side in any of the major leagues around Europe, and I think we're lucky to have him. I think you're right. He's a definite number one. He's the best keeper, in my opinion, that we've had since Shea Given. He's up there in the top couple of keepers that we've ever had, to be honest. His command, yes, he's got the odd mistake and stuff like that, but you look back, Shea Given had the odd mistake in him. I remember Dion Dublin. You know what I mean? There's always, the thing is with a goalkeeper, if he makes a slight mistake, mate, the ball's in the back of the net. So everybody seems to remember that a lot more. But no doubt about it, Dubravka is absolute class. And technically, for where we are, which is a lower end Premier League club at the moment, unfortunately, he's probably, you could argue, maybe too good for us in the current terms. But certainly, if you're building a club, and if you're thinking possibly if the takeover was to happen, he's a player that you could quite simply and easily keep, build some other players around it, improve the squad, pad the squad out. And if Newcastle were competing in European action, he would not look out of place one little bit. My worry, if we don't qualify for European competition shortly, on top of losing the likes of your Alan St. Maximans of the world, Dubravka is a really, really prized asset. If I'm a foreign club, one of the top ones in Italy or Germany or France or Spain or England, I'm certainly going to be known about Martin Dubravka. But yeah, 7 out of 10, very, very fair. If he'd have played all season, possibly higher. But he's a top keeper. He's got that command, that presence, and he's got the connection. He gets it, and it proves the old adage, mate. You don't have to be born in any one to get the football club. Don't listen to what journalists pipe out about Newcastle being anti-anybody from abroad, from down south. Say that's a perfect example of it. The crowd love Martin Dubravka. He loves the fans back. We were there for the Sheffield United game.
Yeah, he got a nice reception.
He's interacting back with the crowd and stuff like that. He gets it. He buys into it. He loves the city. He loves the club. I don't think he's going anywhere, and I wouldn't sell him no matter what the fee that they put on the table. No.
Yeah, I completely agree. So Martin Dubravka, keep. So we'll move on to the third choice goalkeeper now, Paul. Is it Martin Gillespie? Because I was just about. It's Mark Gillespie. But I was just about to keep Gillespie. I was going to say he's a winner from the 90s, Kyle. How he pipe down. But
well, I tell you what, Keith. If you're watching, he does, and you can check this. He does follow us on Twitter, so you never know.
Aye, you never know. I'd love to have him on at some point. But going on to Mark, big Mark Gillespie. Right. I wasn't expecting this lad to play much, Paul, but with the injury to Dubravka in the cup games, he really got a chance to play in them, and with Newcastle making a quarter final, unbelievably, he got a couple of games.
We're talking about wallpapering. Wallpapering over them cracks again, are we?
Yeah. I mean, Gillespie. He played. I think he played 3 or 4 games this season. He played all right versus Blackburn, where we got peppered, to be fair, and we were lucky to win the game. Made a couple of decent saves. Newport were kind of dragged through, and he made a flipping howler of a mistake. And I mean, I'm being really probably a bit Schar with this, but I'm going to give him a 4. It's a tough spot because obviously he's been behind 2 decent goalkeepers this season and stuff like that. But when you haven't played much, I've got to magnify on what he's done wrong, and that mistake versus Newport probably knocked him down by 1 or 2.
And you've got to take into consideration, mate, the opposition that he's done it against. It's not exactly Manchester City or that type of quality. It's lower league quality that he's made those errors against. It's a fantastic story. A lad who's came up through the system has had to move sideways in order to move forwards. So he's gone around. He's done a little bit of the travel. He's been up to Scotland. He's been around some of the lower leagues. He's came back to Newcastle. A fantastic story. A local lad who gets it. And he's looked decent in some of the little bits, but you can't, as you totally correctly touched on, you can't disregard some of the shockers in there. He's not done enough.
He's a good leader, though.
Yeah, but I think you're right with your 4 out of 10. I'd have gone for 4 out of 10 as well. And there's got to be major heat on his collar from Woodman returning, back from loan from down South Wales for Swansea. And I think we both know that Gillespie won't be sold. He'll be given opportunities, and maybe he may be the number 2 at the club next season. It's very well possible. If Darlow sold, if Woodman's sold, then possibly he could be second choice.
I think Gillespie will be third choice, and that's why I would keep him. I know you're probably listening so far, and you're like, Darlow got an 8, you want rid of him. Gillespie got a 4, you want to keep him. If you've turned off now, I understand. But, right, I'll explain. I think with Woodman coming in, I think he'll be number 2. Dubravka's your number 1. Darlow, I think, will be sold. And then Gillespie is your third choice goalkeeper at Newcastle. It's well known over the years we've had shit ton of problems with goalkeepers. Remember when we ended up with Jack Anik? Or like when we've lost flipping, where we ended up with Steve Harper.
There's a backstory about Jack Anik at the moment. He's been cropping up. Well, I don't know if many people will know about my Football Manager exploits, but I was having a goalkeeper crisis and I nearly had to re-sign them because things were getting that bad. They really were between the sticks. But yeah, it's a name that keeps popping up, that one.
Jack Anik, I mean, probably the worst goalkeeper I've seen, but it's a bit shocking because he wasn't ready. But yeah, we've had some goalkeeping crisis over the years, mate, and I just don't want to repeat that because if Dubravka gets injured, he's shown he can do that. If Woodman was to get injured or Darlow, whichever way they decide to go on that one. I mean, don't get us wrong. Personally, I think they'll sell Darlow, but if they don't, I'd be more than happy to see him stay. Unlike last season where, I didn't think he had much in him anymore and he could have moved on. But he's going to prove us wrong, so fair play to him. But I'd keep Gillespie on the basis of just his depth. Not I don't think he brings like a quality goalkeeper at the team. I think he brings a solid goalkeeper, someone who can come in. He's got experience, and yeah, I think he's that type of goalkeeper. He's never going to be a number one. He's there in case a disaster happens.
Yeah.
So I think for me,
I think for a third choice keeper, Gillespie isn't bad. The experience that he's had to have a third choice keeper who's gone out, who's done well up in Scotland, he's done well in the lower leagues. You're thinking along the lines of a Rob Elliott, very, very similar. Like that. He's had experiences, he's done well, but he's happy to be third choice at the club. And sometimes it's about building the squad. It's not so much about just having a first 11, because then, like you said, if you get injuries, you're up shit creek without a paddle. You need that squad. Darlow, I think, deserves, and out of more respect than anything else, you were saying, we would sell Darlow and keep Gillespie. I would say exactly the same. I actually do think that Woodman is going to be sold. I think he's going to be sold to fund the fact that we've got a chronic shortage of transfer funds. I think Woodman will go for decent money. I think he'll go with a large sell-on fee and maybe a buyback price. But I do think Woodman will go. And I personally think that Gillespie could well end up as the club's number 2 goalkeeper, because I think the need that you could get 6 to 10 million for Darlow. You could potentially get maybe 12 to 15 with a hefty sell-on fee, etc., for Woodman. So if you're talking maybe £20 million plus for 2 players, when you've got Dubravka with 12 to 16 million pound a rumored transfer kitty, it's decent money. And then you put that together, and you might be able to afford 1, 2, or 3 players to bolster the squad where we're threadbare in other areas. Or it could get you a Joe Willock. I'm just throwing that one in now. I know we're not got midfielders, that's my
midfielders will be part 2. Because obviously we've got like 27 centre backs and 2 right backs and 4 left backs. So yeah, I think
we've got to be on Krafth as well.
But I mean, it's interesting that you think we'll get rid of both Darlow and Woodman, mate. I think we'll keep one of them and we'll sell one of them, but I can see that.
I don't think Woodman will want it. I think it's a bit like a drug. He's gone out there and he's been the first choice. He's been the man. And I watched him in particular in the playoffs against Barnsley over the 2 legs. And he was really, really decent. He was really decent. He kept Barnsley at bay with a string of impressive saves, plus one in particular where he made a save, but then his ability to recover really well and get back up and make the second save was fantastic. And I just think if you're that lad, I'd be sitting there thinking, do I really want to sit on the bench, or do I want to go and be a number 1 somewhere? Again, top-end championship club or a promoted club, and even the likes of Arsenal, mid-table Arsenal, they're interested in it. And could we use it as a bit of incentive, again, to get that certain midfielder that we'll get to in part 2? But, I would use any tactic necessary to be able to free the finances up or to oil the wheels to get a certain Joe who scores a lot of goals.
Yeah, I mean, you do make an interesting point, mate, for sure. If it meant we got Joe Willock, I'd probably do that as well.
Yeah,
but we're going to move on
I'll tell my granny, to be honest, if we could get Joe Willock in, I'd drive it out. See you later.
Yeah, I mean, we'll move on to right backs. This is going to be. This might be half the podcast, just a precursor for what's to come. I think Paul knows what's coming next. Yeah,
I've got my Sweden top. I've got my Sweden top. Come on, how is Sweden?
Emil Krafth, Paul. Are we getting rid of him or we're keeping him? I mean, we'll start with his rating first. I don't think he hasn't been great, has he? There's been a lot of games this season where he's been shambolic at fullback, where he has not been up to scratch. He's been getting mugged more times than anything. Just hasn't been there at all. For me, I think he's been my worst performing right back.
I'm just checking my facts. 20 games he's played in this season, mate.
Jesus Christ.
20. That shows you if you don't walk into St James's and see the fact of a need for TLC paint and Jay's fluid everywhere, then if you look at the playing squad and see Emil Krafth making 20 appearances for Newcastle, that should also set the alarm bells off, because he is absolutely and utterly shite. The saying of a used wet wipe came from that lad and his performances, because he is about, to me, he's about as much use as a used wet wipe. Steve Bruce seems to rave over this lad and think he's, I don't know, like a defensive Henrik Larsson or something like that. When I see him, I just see, every time the ball goes near him, I'm like, please don't fuck up. Please don't fuck it up. Please just get rid of the ball and give it to somebody else.
The champions.
And that was a definite high point, and it was Shearer-esque, and that's the greatest compliment and the only compliment that I would give to Emil Krafth. But honestly, he's like the Swedish Titus Bramble. I just don't like him playing. I don't trust him, mate. He's a right back or a right wing back who Bruce seems to get some sort of titivation from playing in centre back, and he talks about his pace and stuff. And I get why you would think our three centre backs need a little bit of pace. But he's got no pace. His positional sense is all over the shop. He has the odd average game. I think he's better in the three centre backs than at right back. But he's bad. I mean, keep or sell. I'd free transfer this. I'd free transfer him. He's shocking. He's the Sells. You know what I mean? He's the
Matt Sells, not Lascelles. Matt Sells.
Yeah, he's the
rating. I'll give him a 3. I think 3 to generous 3. There's been so many games where he's been ripped a new arsehole, mate. But I think he's went up from a 2 to a 3 just for that header against Man City. I'm easily pleased.
Well, I'd have gone from a 0 to a 1.
Yeah.
Honestly,
all right.
absolutely.
I'll knock it down to a 1 then. Spot on. So we'll stick with the 1 for Emil Krafth. And keep or sell. Definitely and most definitely sell. But will Bruce sell him?
No. He'll be sitting there in his Swedish top, eating his meatballs, putting his flat pack furniture up, Brucey, watching at home with Mrs. Bruce, and saying, hasn't he done well as Sweden get pumped 6 or 7? That will be what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, he's just not the greatest of defenders. Like,
you're going to find out on this keeper sell. I don't believe. I know Mark will be listening because he listens to all of our stuff, and I know you like sitting on the fence, Mark. But you know for a certain fact that we ain't going to stink a tree sort paint, mate, and we've got no splinters in our ass. You know what I mean? So sell, free transfer, anything. Loan them out to Sunderland.
No, look, he do well there from Tower and header and that, but we've got to get rid of Krafth. I think he's dead wood in the team. I don't get this thing that he's a utility player. He's shit at centre back. He's shit at right back.
Yeah, he's a shit utility.
Not for me. Not for me. He probably do well in a lower league like a Championship or a league like where he came from, or
a Dutch league.
Yeah, do well in one of them, but just think it's too physical for him in the Premier League, mate. He's not fast enough, and he only seems to do well when he's got plenty of protection around him. So for me, 1. Well, I'll stick with me 3. You stick with your 1, and yes, definitely sell. But we'll move on to the next right back, and I think Javier Maquillio. He's had a bit of a strange season, mate. To be honest, I think for him to be behind Murphy and Krafth at points this season is a tad embarrassing, because obviously
and he's only just
number 1 right back. He was doing all right, and then he started just to. It seems to me like he's fell off a bit of a cliff, mate, this season.
I don't know what's going on, because he was rewarded after last season with a new contract, and at that point he was playing some decent stuff. I previously, and prior to that, I had humble pie over Javier Maquillio because he seemed to turn it around. Now, I'm not saying he was fantastic defensively, but offensively, he was putting in some wicked crosses, from right back and doing some great performances. So yeah, then I changed direction and I said, look, I hold my hands up. He's doing a lot better. He gets a new contract, and you're like, he clearly deserves that. But then when we're struggling at left back and struggling at right back or right wing back, left wing back, and he's on the bench and he's not included, you are scratching your head to say, well, is there a problem? Has there been a falling out? Is there something wrong with his training? Because he just wasn't getting the opportunities this season that he's had previously. So it is really, really peculiar, but he's got a decent contract now and a few years on it. I can't see Bruce selling him. I really, really can't, but he hasn't made enough of an impact to give him a great score at all. But you know what I mean? I don't know what you think.
For me, I think he's just had a really shit season, Paul. He's never been given he's been given chances. He hasn't played well when he has been given chances. For me, he's been better than Krafth. Obviously, Bruce has chosen Krafth at points in the season over him, and even then Murphy, who we'll touch on in a minute. But for me, I've got to give him the same. My rating is the same as what I would give Krafth, 3 out of 10.
3 out of 10 is fair.
And I honestly think to go with it, mate. Like, I know Steve Bruce mightn't sell him, but I would. I know he got rewarded with a new contract and that, and he deserved it at the time. But for me, I'd sell him straight away.
I'm just at his stats, mate. And our good friends at the Premier League. Hey, Cockmaster.
What?
Yeah, I'm sure Richard Masters he'll be spending his time looking at this. Actually, he knows how much of a great supporter of his I am. He made 13 appearances last season, just 13. And we kept 3 out of our 7 clean sheets when he actually played. So there's a little bit of a fly in the ointment. Tackle success, 58%. But it's a strange one. I do think Bruce will keep him. I do think he's going to be around in the squad. But 13 appearances all season, mate, isn't what he's going to be looking at. And how can you build up much of a case for the defence if you can't get much game time, you know? Scratch your head on this one.
You see, for me, I've got the same logic as what you have for the goalkeepers, for the right back. Newcastle need a new right back. Personally, with the wing back system that we deployed towards the end of the season, I think if we've still got Bruce and we've still got Jones, we will still keep that. I don't rate J.Murphy as a right wing back, but I think he'd be a good second choice for a new one coming in. So therefore, I would get rid of Krafth and I'll get rid of Maquillio, generate a couple of million, and then buy a new right back with that money, and hope it's an improvement on what we get, because I know what Bruce will do. You'll see El Mohammedi on the transfer market. He's thinking, I used him at Wigan, Villa, and Sunderland, and he's a good right. No, can't be having that, because we cannot replace bad with worse. So you need to get rid of flipping Emil Krafth. You need to get rid of Javier Maquillio, and you need to bring in a decent right back. Don't go for the cheap option on this one, Bruce, because we've needed a right back for a long time. In fact,
who's our best right back of recent times?
Probably Daryl Janma. I honestly, I'll go as far as saying Newcastle still haven't replaced Debuchy when he left in 2015, 2016. In terms of a quality right back. I mean, Janma showed his glimpses. Yedlin was good in the Championship. Krafth is flipping useless. Maquillio has had one good season in 4. So, we still haven't replaced Debuchy, to be honest.
And time after time, mate, you will see when you sat here watching back at home with your fake crowd noise on and this, that, and the other, watching the TV, you will see time and time again that opposition sides target our right back slot all of the time. because you've either got Jacob Murphy in there, who is a winger who's playing in an unfamiliar position, or you, like you said, you've got Emil Krafth, who it's like winning the lottery, finding out that Emil Krafth's on the team sheet for an opposition, player. And there's just loads of space, and we've got to tighten up the defence. We have only kept 7 clean sheets last season. It's not enough at all if we are serious, as Bruce keeps banging on about breaking into this top 10. We need to be able to keep a few clean sheets to take the pressure off. And it is a major weakness. It's embarrassing how Newcastle haven't themselves, the coaching team, the setup, the scouts, haven't said, we are getting absolutely destroyed down this side all the time. We need to do something about this and get a specialised person in for the position. And like you said, keep an understudy so you still got the squad to pan out to. And I like Jacob Murphy. I do. I like him attacking. But in the games where we're up against it, yes, he's a great outball because he's got pace and he can be direct. And I think his crossing's improved a little bit. And he's wicked on Football Manager, let me tell you that as well. But defensively, if you are playing against Newcastle, you target that side all day long because you know you're going to get joy. You're going to get joy all the time. You're going to get in behind the fullback, and then you can whip a ball in, and you're creating chances against us all of the time. We need more clean sheets next season, mate, if we are serious about getting better. So it's an area of great concern for myself and stuff as well.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. And I think to move on to Jacob Murphy, and it's probably the only position, like the only player in this position where there's a little bit of praise to come the way of Jacob Murphy, because back in the last season, we thought he was out the door. He just finished a loan at Sheffield Wednesday. It didn't look like he was going to make a career at Newcastle United, and it was kind of a bite the bullet, heavy heart thing because he's a local lad. But this season, mate, he's came in, he's been playing out of position, and yeah, he is suspect at times, but I think he's had one hell of a season, Paul.
It does offer you a lot going forward, mate. Like I say, it's not a Slade Jacob Murphy thing at all. You know, you're asking a player to do a job out of position, similar to what Matt Ritchie's done, and he's done well, more than decently. He's done well to be in an unfamiliar position, and he's given it his all. He clearly cares about the club, the shirt, the badge. He's played 26 appearances this season, 2 goals, and he scored some. It's big, big situations. He's had a couple of absolute peaches of a cross. One in particular, where I remember him getting in. It was the Sheffield. Was the Sheffield game where he gets in? Yeah, and he crosses in. He cuts it back in. Beauty of a one. Important contributions to games. And going forward, fantastic. It's not his fault that he isn't trained and he isn't of that mind to play the defensive side as much. And it's up to the 3 centre-backs, whoever plays on the right-hand side of that 3, to be able to coach Jacob Murphy through the game and to get that defensive work done. And it's up to the coaches on the training pitches over the likes of the summer to really work on his positional sense and just getting him a little bit more aware of what's going on behind him. But he's out of contract. And at the moment, I know the return list came out from the Premier League, didn't mention anything about Jacob Murphy. But he is out of contract. I hope the club can sort something out for him. 26 appearances, 2 goals, and being involved in lots of good stuff. I think certainly another couple of years, if you could get another 2 or 3 year contract out of him, I would keep him.
I think there's definitely a squad player there, Paul. I think he's had a really good season. For me, 7 out of 10. No, sorry, 8 out of 10. I thought of the cross against West Brom. That put from a 7 to an 8 for me. It was that good of a cross. Probably the best cross I've seen in a Newcastle shirt in particular, probably since remember Kennedy's cross against Bournemouth for Rondon's header.
Yeah,
probably that level. It was a peach of a cross, and he's had a really good season. Stood up in big games, scored that free kick against Wolves, scored that goal against Burnley, the equaliser. I think he's played well. He definitely offers Newcastle something going forward. A little bit suspect at the back, but I would take him at right wing back over Krafth and Maquillio any day.
It would be my first choice with the current. If I was dropped in as manager, and heaven help John Joe Shelby if I was, but if I was dropped in as Newcastle manager over the summer, I'd have no qualms about playing the lad. I'd just tweak it so that the three centre backs weren't so absolutely clueless as to think, oh, it's all right, you'll take care of the defensive side. I always used to remember back in the day, the Keegan days, they used to joke on with David Ginola. They used to say, there's no point asking him to track back because he isn't going to track back. What you've got to do is to work it in the system so that there is cover for the fact that he doesn't track back and use his strengths and not go towards his weaknesses. And it's another situation similar there. I know he's not of Ginola's quality, don't get me wrong, but put in place the system and work it between the defensive unit with three back and holding midfielders. It's perfectly capable to get somebody to sort of slide in whilst J.Murphy is making those runs. Get somebody to cover the space in that right wing back area so that we can't be hit so many times on the sucker punch and the opposition can't.
He's got good delivery.
Out of us, you know what I mean? Because that is what happens 9 times out of 10. Opposition managers get to attack us down that flank, and we do concede so much from down that way. So I would definitely keep him. I'd have said a good 7 out of 10. I totally agree. I'm happy with the 8 out of 10. But yeah, hopefully the club sort him out the contract and he's at Newcastle next season, mate. Because
I think he will be. I think it's a no-brainer that we'll keep ahead of him.
I know, but he doesn't have a brain, mate. That's the issue. I told you before, he wears slip-on shoes, mate, because he can't tie his own bloody laces. So, come on, Charlie, man, Penfold. Get the contract sorted out.
I completely agree, and I'm sure many others in the chat do as well. On to centre-backs now, and I think we'll start for Kieran Clark, mate. Now, before I start, right, I know Kieran Clark's been good for Newcastle. He had a great championship season. Since the promotion season, I think he's been, even at the first part of this season, was all right. But he picked up a knock, he picked up an injury, and he came back from that injury, Paul, and he was absolutely bloody terrible. I don't want to be quick to write someone off, but for me, Kieran Clark just did not look the same after this injury. And it might be controversial. I might get shit for it, but I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. That second half of the season, mate, he couldn't find a Newcastle player if he tried.
He has been well.
I have a lot of respect for Kieran Clark. I really do. He's been an amazing servant for Newcastle United. But
prove people wrong because when we signed him, everybody was like, "What? We signed him from Aston Villa after what they've done." He's played 22 appearances this season, mate. And in them 22 appearances, we've conceded 35 goals. Yeah,
he's just not been up to scratch, mate, for me from that injury. He's been making mistakes. He can't get the ball out properly.
Remember that game in the League Cup? Not this season gone, but prior, when we were down at the City Ground under our previous guys.
I remember.
And he absolutely played at left back that night, and literally he was like the Skittles man, but everything he touched turned to shit. And I blew my head. That was one of the worst performances, right, that I'd ever seen. Now, since then, he got used sparingly, but then again, seemed to step it up, seemed to be a consistent, steady Eddie at the back. Not fantastic, but not terrible. But this season, 22 appearances, 35 goals. And I'm just looking at some of his stats. Tackle success, 58% tackle success. And you're quite right. He's continuously give the ball away. He's looked shaky. He hasn't looked... He's just like another version of Emil Krafth, I suppose you'd say. Every time you get the ball, you're like, oh, please, please, please. But it's a difficult one because he has been a lot better in recent seasons gone by than what he is now. But based upon the season that he's just had, mate, I think you're quite right to say that perhaps his time is up. But again, my worry would be finances are really, really tight. But if you could get a few million for him, then maybe from again a top end championship club, a promoted side, a Watford, somebody like that. Again, I'll say, then I think the correct decision would be to give him a transfer. I think 4 to 10. I think you probably will get a little bit of grief in the comments about it.
Yeah, but, if I do, fair enough. But the way I see it, mate, is I just don't think he's that defender anymore. I'd like to see him go to a leading championship team, and that's why I think I'd also sell him. I think you go to a championship team and do well, because the links we're being linked with. I think it's Asia from Celtic.
Yeah,
he's a young defender, and I think he'll come in, and it's either Clark, Lejeune, or both of them that'll part ways for him.
There's also a lad from Arsenal as well, mate. Is it Salabas or something like that?
Yeah.
They signed him for 27 million, loaned him out to might have been Lyon. It's certainly some French club for the past 2 seasons and all that. And they're looking at him seriously for a loan. I think if they can't get the Joe Willock thing done potentially on loan, could look to this lad to come in, and he could be certainly a backup option to the lad from Celtic. But I think there is going to be a reshuffling. I think Brucey, being an ex centre back, has looked at it. He's looked at the goals we're conceding.
So
lack of clean sheets. Well, I know, but surely professionally. He's not that either. Yeah. If he's going to be an expert in any area, but if he's to be an expert in any area, surely to God hell, it's going to be defence. And we have leaked an awful amount of goals. But what I will say to that, and a caveat to that, it's the same with Clark, a lot of it, mate, comes down to the fact of the absolute moron who is organising it all, and the conductor at the front of it in being Steve Bruce. And that's why I did say if a lot of the time. But you would think Steve Bruce, with what he did in the game as a player, would be able to help and elevate our defensive players up to be better. What he's doing, mate, is quite the opposite. He's making the defence worse. And I don't know how that is physically possible. You think about attacking players working with other, when they retire, working with other attacking players, making them better. Bruce seems to think, well, if I make them look shit, then I'll look even better for my day. I don't know. It makes no sense. But I think, Kieran Clark is probably.
I mean, I'd wish him well.
To make some space.
I would wish him well, and honestly, you get all the praise in the world from me, because I think over the last 5 years he's been a really good servant for Newcastle. Some amazing performances over the years, but I just feel like
got a few goals as well.
Yeah, and a couple of goals here and there. I just think something's changed since that injury. He just does not look the same, mate. Like Kieran Clark in 5 years probably had 2 or 3 bad performances. Since that injury, every performance has been bad. Like, it just doesn't seem right. It's just not the consistent Clark that we're used to. And it just seems like
it might need a change of scenery, mate, just to get the best back out.
It might be like he had a similar thing at Villa where he kind of fell off a cliff.
Yeah,
came to us and rejuvenated his career a little bit. So I think a good opportunity like that for him, I think he'd be golden. Still think he'd be amazing in the Championship as well. So for me, I think Kieran Clark has to go. But on to the next one. The next one won't be as tough for me. I think Paul Dummett's next. He spent most of the season out, so his number is going to be a little bit lower than what it would be, just like Darlow, just like Dubravka. For me, though, Dummett came in after that Brighton game, Paul, where we looked.
Well, you need somebody to stand up.
Yeah, and he did. He was one of the crop of people that did turn up and made himself counted. Barron trying to score an own goal at Burnley, I don't think he put a foot wrong. He even scored in one of the games. Who did he score against? I can't remember.
He got one goal, didn't he? In 15 appearances, one goal, and it was the Leicester game because remember it was a corner that whipped in.
Corner, yeah.
Yeah, bam, like not bullet. It was just literally like you couldn't really miss. It was. I think he was more surprised than anybody else that he'd been given the time and space. But yeah, what a huge goal for him. He hadn't scored in 5 years prior.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Dummett came in, done really well. Dummett that we came to know and expect really over the last couple of years. Solid as to come, doesn't make a mistake. Kind of what we know Clark to be, just Clark kind of not played well in the back end of last season.
I think he's a bit like a Gillespie. He's not going to complain if he's not first choice, but he's a crucial player, A, for the dressing room, and B, to be able to bring in to plug gaps when you've got injuries and stuff like that. So, yeah, he's not going to whinge and complain and bitch that he's on the bench, but he'll come in and he'll do a decent job for you. And he's got the uncanny knack of being in the right place at the right time. So you'll constantly be the player who just gets the final touch in to be able to knock it away. And I just think, again, if we had some better defenders around him and he would just mop up the little occasional errors, I think he gets a lot of... There's people who just don't like him because he's a local lad. I think a lot of pressure comes on him, but there's a lot of people who just absolutely love him to bits. And he's a model professional. But yes, his injuries are absolutely shocking. He doesn't get small injuries. He gets, crazy long injuries where he's gone and you're sort of sitting there thinking, can he come back? Can he come back again? But he always seems to manage it, no matter who the manager is, what the situation is. He does try and put the club, I think, first. He's came in, 15 appearances, 1 goal. In that time, he had 6 wins, which is obviously really, really crucial. And, I thought he's played really, really well.
Yes. For me, it's a 6 out of 10 because he didn't play all season, but those 16 games from coming in, the Brighton game and stuff, phenomenal. If it was over the course of a whole season, it'd be a lot higher, but I think 6 is fair. But as you always get with Dummett, you get Mr. Solid, Mr. Consistent, so more the same. And I think I can speak on behalf of both with Paul in saying that would happily keep Paul.
Oh, you've got to keep Paul Dummett the ball, man. Yeah, definitely.
For sure, definitely keep Paul Dummett. But we might as well move quickly on to the next one. Fabian Schar. This is a strange one because it's another defender who picked up another injury, Paul. And he came back from that injury, got back, and then got sent off, and then didn't see out the rest of the season and stuff. But even before that, he was in and out of the team. He was linked with Inter Milan in the January, so he's had a bit of a topsy-turvy season. But then again, I think
have gone, mate. I have it on good authority. I'm not in the know. I don't work for KFC. I'm not like that. Don't shoot me. But I have it on more than good authority that he had bags packed, and as far as he was concerned, he was leaving the club in January, and we couldn't do business that we wanted to do, so that deal subsequently had to be put on ice. But I think we both really, really rate Fabian Schar. On his day, I think he could arguably be our best defender. He's the most silky smooth. You can love to watch him. He's got a thunder cunt in his Arsenal, which you love to see. He's been linked with other clubs. Again, Arsenal back only a season or so ago, they were strongly into him. But yes, he nearly did. Leave. 18 appearances this season, mate. 1 goal, which was the cheeky of most taking the piss penalty that I've ever seen. Mr. Cool.
Good end of the season for him.
Yeah, a really, really good, solid end of the season. And by all accounts, again, nothing officially said by the club to its customers, the word that they use for the fan base. Supposedly extended his contract for another year, whether that's just to sell him on to get a resale or whether that's because, Bruce wants to keep him. I think we'd be mad to let him go. He can play defensive midfield. He can play, obviously, in a 2 or he can play in a free. Left-footed as well, which is always nice to have some left-footed options and stuff in there. Tackle success isn't exactly fantastic, 31%, mate. But for me,
after the Arsenal game, what in
yeah,
terms of ratings would you give him? I mean, for me, with him not playing much and
that just
then we got back getting sent off and stuff, I can't give him any higher than a 4, to be honest. If I'm going to be Shannon Clark, I'm going to have to tar Schar with the same brush. But
I mean, just to make it clear, we know it's not their fault that they got injured, but you've got to take that into consideration when doing the score, because at the end of the day, if they're only going to be available half of the time, then that is going to have a massive impact on the score that you're able to give, because that's put us in a more difficult it's like situation and stuff like that, and that is his Achilles heel. I personally think if Fabian Schär was to stay fit season in, season out, if he was to do a Ward-Prowse right at Southampton, then I think we would have definitely lost him to a bigger in inverted commas, a European chasing team before now. I think he is a quality, decent defender who's able to do everything John Joe can do, plus a lot more. He can stroke the ball around, he can ping it left, ping it right, and he can bring the ball out. He's definitely a nice ball-playing defender. And a player that I really, really like, but I think your score you've given him, given what you've just given Kieran Clark, is fair in that context.
Yeah, well, with him not playing, but I'd still keep Schär. The reason for it, though, and like people might think, oh, well, you're getting rid of Clark and he's being good servant, and you're keeping Schär. Why are you doing that? The reason is, right, we don't have a defender that can pass the ball. If we're bringing age, I don't know what he's like. I don't know much about him. I don't watch Scottish football because it's shit. So any Celtic fans there come at us, I don't care. Any Rangers fans have at us, I don't care. But Schär is the only player that can pass the ball in our defence. You get Feddy who kicks it long. You get Clark who kicks it long. You get Lascelles who kicks it long. You got Dummett who kicks it up. We can't pass the ball from the back. And I argued with a lad on Twitter about this because Shelvey, this lad likes Shelvey, and it's we've had many arguments over this one. But one thing he said that I truly think that he's right in is that when we've tried to play out from the back, we've never been able to because our defence is poor. And it doesn't help the midfield doesn't move much, but if we're trying to play out from the back, you need Fabian Schär there because he can pass and he can pass very well. So for me, you've got to keep Fabian Schär. But for me, well, to move on to Jamal Lascelles, another defender, Paul, with another injury. So it's become
captain.
So I'll let you take the floor of Lascelles with your stats and stuff, because honestly, I can't remember what he's done this season, mate, to be honest.
19 appearances, mate. 19 appearances, 2 goals. And in those 19 appearances...
2-2. Aye, 2-2. I remember that at Wolves.
In that 19 appearances, we've won 3 games out of that 19. It's not great reading. We had 2 clean sheets in those 19 games. And he's... Jamal Lascelles is a player that I really, really like, and I always tend to have that more affinity with the captain of the club, the official captain of the club. So when people were slating Colaccini, I was still sticking up for Colaccini. He was the club captain. It's difficult. But if you look at some of these ones, what I would say is he was fit more towards the beginning of the season. He was fit pre. The Gateshead Guardiola coming in. I would like to see him in playing for us more with the Gateshead Guardiola's influence on the back line and everything. But Jamal Lascelles this season hasn't been fit enough, which again, I know it's not his fault, but it's just a fact. We need him and our club captain to be fit more often than not. He hasn't been fit enough. And when he has when he has played, I don't think he's hit the standards of recent seasons. And that needs to change awfully, awfully quickly because you can't have the captain playing so terribly because the captain, as we'll get to with John Joe Shelby in a minute on the second part, but if your captain, it was like an automatic pick, is playing so awfully, it is going to hamstring you. So it's a big summer. He needs to get his fitness sorted out, his form sorted out, because there's no doubt about it. On his day, mate, he's absolutely a fantastic player. He's been a bargain of a signing him and Darlow for peanuts, mate, from Forest. Psycho's just been on about it in the past week, saying that was one of the worst deals ever for Nottingham Forest to let those two go for peanuts because of their financial situation and stuff at the time. And I do tend to agree with Stuart Pearce on that one, but it's been he hasn't showed himself with greatness, I don't think, this season, mate.
No, I agree. I mean, he hasn't been great.
We keep him, obviously.
He had a good little patch in, I think it was before he got injured. I think he's been slightly better than a couple of the centre-backs we've named, but not much better. So I'd give him a 5. I'd definitely keep Jamal Lascelles. So I've got to quickly type this out just to make it look Ari for YouTube and stuff. So to bear with us a second, I've got Kep. No Kep, the Chelsea keeper. I went K-E-P-P. I went proper Kep. So we're going with keep. We'll keep Lascelles, but he hasn't had a great season. I'd like to see more of him. His leadership is obviously needed in the team. So yeah, for me, keep Lascelles, but obviously I think he's got to improve as well. If he has a season like last season, next season, if he repeats this, obviously I think a few more questions will be asked. But yeah, for me, 5 out of 10 for Lascelles, with we're keeping him. Probably looking at him a little bit and say if it continues, maybe change the leave at the end of next season, but we'll see. Hopefully we'll have new owners by then. It's a different kind of video, but yeah, or podcast. But yeah, you are.
Hashtag cans. Have you seen what Nick DeMarco's put out? I know we're sidestepping slightly, but Nick DeMarco, you absolute pure tease, putting out a picture of he's watching the Euros. He's put football on and cans out. I'm like, I commented straight away underneath there. You absolute tease.
Yeah, I just hope he can deliver with a takeover, mate. But in terms of centre backs, I'll crack on with our last centre back before I move to the left backs, and then it'll be the end of part 1. So the last centre back is obviously Fede Fernandez. I think in terms of performing centre backs this season, I think Fede's probably been one most consistent over the whole season. So I think he'll get the highest rating out of all of them for me. I think he obviously solid, shows is good in the tackle. I think with the tackling stats that you've been doing, mate, it wouldn't surprise if Fede was the highest. I mean, don't get us wrong, he's not been like a world beater, but there's been some games where he's just shown to have that bit more ability defensively. I think he made a couple of mistakes at the latter end of the season, but I think in terms of consistency, you get what you get with Fernandez. He's missed a little bit of the season, but he's been all right. So what's his stats for the season, Paul?
So 24 appearances, obviously no goals. In those 24 appearances, 9 wins, a tackle success rate of 76%, which is a lot higher than everybody else. And I think with Fede, I think he's been a player who benefits from having playing at the 3 at the back. I don't think he looks as good as a 2, because I think he's fantastic at heading, organisation, trying to pull players around. I think he's better at that, but he's not the quickest. So he needs somebody around him who's got a little bit of pace to be able to deal with the more nippier sort of type of strikers and everything. But he puts his body on the line. He'll put his, he'll throw himself in front of stuff. He gets the head in there. He's big. He's brave. He's quite a big unit. And I think, out of all of our defenders, yes, our defence has been creaky this season, as we've touched on. But I think he's been best of, not a bad lot, but a bit of an average job from the defence this season. Fernandez, I think, would definitely get for me at least a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give him a 6.
Again, this isn't in stone because obviously he's out of contract, mate, in a matter of like a few weeks. I would keep Federico Fernandez. I think under the Ashley structure, what are you going to get that's any better out there? They're not going to really splash that much cash, let's be honest. So I will keep Federico Fernandez. The club are trying to play hardball and they don't want to give him more than maybe a 1-year contract, possibly a 2-year. He wants a 3-year contract, a little bit of stability. I think he's settled in the area. His family are settled in the area. Again, model professional. And another player we brought in for next and out, mate, who's done a good, decent job, but 24 appearances. Still not really touching on the player who's in the defence who's been playing all season, but
none of them did.
Out of the current crop, he's done the best, definitely.
For me, I'd definitely keep him. There are times in the season where I've seen he's not as quick as he used to be, but that tends to happen when you get to the age he's at. But I think with pace in and around him, I think he'd be okay. So I'd keep Fetty 100%. I think. I mean, I didn't even know the tackling stats before you mentioned them, but his tackling rate is really high. So yeah, I'd keep Fernandez, no problem. But the last position of the first episode is the left backs, and I think we've got 2 to cover before.
Yeah, there'll be no head slapping. There's no head slapping that will be done during the recording of this video whilst we're covering the left wing back area.
Only because I cannot reach you.
But gives a target might be different.
But it's we'll start with Jamal Lewis. I think it's really poor first season for Jamal. Kind of got rolled off by Steve Bruce early. A couple of really poor performances, mate, and it's a shame because we paid a lot of money for this kid, and it's like we're expecting a raw talent, but defensively, he's not good at all. There's a lot of frailties in his defensive game, and I'm gonna have to be harsh again, mate. I can't give him any higher than a 3. I think he's been shite this season, to be honest. I still think there's a lot of potential there, and I'd keep him. Don't get us wrong, I'd still keep him, but he's got to get his shit together, because we
tell you something, right? I wouldn't be surprised if a Norwich came in with a cheeky loan offer for him. There's a premonition, shall we say. Again, I'm not in the know. I don't work for KFC, but it's just my gut feeling that Norwich could well come in for him. Now, when we signed him, I think we both would admit that we were pretty pleased that he signed. Young, exciting, talented, but defensively, I think he's been found out a little bit naive. Has he benefited from being with Steve Bruce? No, he has not. He's definitely gone back over. But let's just remind ourselves that Liverpool was strongly after this lad at one point. So there's definitely a player in there. And I think with a better coach, I mean, let's be honest, I've touched on it before. I think McGrath would be a better coach than Steve Bruce. I think Mrs. Bruce and an apple crumble would be better than Stevie Bruce. But Jamal Lewis has really struggled since coming to Newcastle. 24 appearances, no goals yet. 7 wins in those 24 appearances. Tackle success, 54%. Sort of tells you something. But I think his thing, only 1 block shot. We've conceded 37 goals in those 24 games. And again, it's another thing that I think when he's played, opposition managers have targeted. I think he's got a lack of confidence. And I think if he was a little bit more confident, had a little bit more support, maybe an arm around him, I think he's one of them players who needs a bit of an arm around him and a little bit of a cajoling up.
Yeah, I agree.
I also think as well, we were stupid not to have an experienced player available all season. It was a specialist in that role. Matt Ritchie's a right winger who was asked to play as a left wing back, right? And he does a fantastic cracking job. Don't get me wrong. But if you had a Jeffro Williams or somebody like that in to sort of mentor him, and to sort of like you could bring him in and out, and he can pass on those little secrets and stuff like that of the game. And if he could maybe bulk up a little bit, I think physically maybe needs to be a little bit more athletic looking in this sort of age of Premier League football that we're in. I still think there's a player there, but he does need somebody, I think, to mentor him and to put the arm around him and just to sort of like boost him up a little bit. I would definitely keep him, but I agree with what you're saying, mate. I think the score has to be low because I think we both expected a lot more of him. And I think we both thought that it'd be first choice left back all season. And he's been fit. He's been fit and available for most of the season. And he's played international football. He's done that okay. But he just hasn't done it at Newcastle. And he looks really, really shaky. Really shaky. When the pressure's on down his side, you do worry.
I do. I mean, there's a lot of potential in the kid, and I gave him a 3. Paul, I haven't been happy with his season at all. He does need that manager that's going to get the best out of him. I don't feel Steve Bruce is that man. I feel Rafa will get something out of him, but obviously Rafa hasn't been here for 2 years. I managed to get Rafa in another podcast. But yeah,
with that arm around, he's a player that needs to be micromanaged, and that's what Rafa used to do really, really well. That Bruce doesn't. Bruce sits there and is about as much use as a chocolate fireguard on the touchline. To be fair, during the game, he does nothing. But if you go back to a Rafa Benitez game, he is constantly micromanaging every aspect of the game. Players are coming off at halftime, full time, arm around them, having a word with them. Bruce doesn't do that, mate. And I keep wanting to say Lascelles. Lewis would benefit so much from that sort of approach. But very early in his Newcastle career, he can certainly turn it around, and he's no Ashraf Lazar. That's for certain, mate.
He's a two-time championship winner. Hate him. You may hate him, Paul, but he's won the championship twice. He's done some at Sunderland kind of for D twice. But no,
I did something Sunderland couldn't do. Even I found the bloody route out of Division 3. I was stumbling around a park in Rotherham, and I come across the trophy for the Division 3 playoffs. So even I managed to.
Aye, but yeah, to go on to the last one of the episode, Matt Ritchie. For me, I think ever since he's came in from the cold. Let's be honest, he came in from the cold. It seems to be from coming out the cold, from this argument, from the fight that he had, he's with Steve Bruce in the training ground. He came in, he was absolutely phenomenal for at least for all of them games he had. He had a massive part in it. His leadership, his grit, his determination. It really had something on the team. It really kind of gave the team something. After the humiliation at Brighton, we needed some inspiration. And I think Matt Ritchie led a contingent of Dummett, the Longstaff's Sean coming back in, and a couple others to really help keep the team up. So for me, Matt Ritchie gets a 7. I'd keep him as well, for sure. I think his leadership he was linked nearly out the door in January, where he nearly went back to Bournemouth. But
yeah,
for me, mate, it's 100%. We've got to keep Matt Ritchie, and I think them last 16 games that he was a part of. Well, I say last 16, probably last 12 after Brighton. I think, I think you've got to have him as a major part of your team. Even if we don't invest on the right hand side, you could probably play Matt Ritchie at right wing back, and he'd be competent there. And then you bring in Jetro Willems, who looks like he's coming back in to the team on a permanent. It all points to a free transfer as soon as the transfer window properly opens. In fact, it already is open, man. So it's imminent. It could be imminent at any point by the looking at that. But yeah, I'd keep Matt Ritchie 7 out of 10. Absolute baller, mate, Ritchie. With the determination, the leadership, he just ticks every box for a team that were a mess at the time.
He's a utility player, mate. You could play him, like you said, on the right. You can play him on the left. He has played this season as well further forward. Let's not forget that when we needed him to be on the right side of the front three, he's played that role and stuff as well. He was man enough to go up to Steve Bruce, even though I felt that Matt Ritchie was probably in the right, but he was man enough to go up to him, shake his hand, apologise in front of the squad, and that shows you a lot about Matt Ritchie and the man that he is. Talking about the character and the fire and the determination, him coming back into the team and Newcastle's form picking up is no coincidence to me whatsoever. 18 appearances this season. During that time, 7 wins. No goals this season though for Matt Ritchie.
He had a couple of assists though, Paul.
He has had a couple of assists, and he's got that in his locker. Normally he takes penalty kicks, but I think he's been a little bit put off because he's missed 1 or 2 recently. Yes, he wanted to go back to Bournemouth. He wasn't getting the game time. That's perfectly understandable. But again, a professional. He's not sulking about it. He's not got the tit on. He's grafting hard and doing it for the club. He's like he gets Newcastle, he gets the fans, and he gets doing things the right way and everything. And like you touched on, keep all day long.
Yeah, 100%. And for the first part of We'll Keep Ourselves /player ratings video /podcast, yeah, that's it.
Are we not touching on Lejeune though? Would you keep yourself in?
I was gonna at the end of part 2. I was actually gonna do the loan players. So Woodman, Lejeune, Cass, Watts, and Songare. I was gonna touch on them separately.
Do the Yamayobi section.
Hi. So we'll touch on that towards the end of part 2.
Yeah.
So we'll just do that then, mate. But so this one's part 1. Part 2 will be out in a couple of days, or for us in about 2 minutes' time. But it should be a good one. So if you haven't, please like and subscribe to Magpie 24/7. If you're listening on the podcast, please follow on that as well. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the whole shebang. So if you want to interact with us on the daily where Newcastle's concerned, we're there every day. So have a bit of crack on with it. But till the next episode, we'll love yous and leave yous, and we'll catch yous in a bit. See yous later.